Karoline Leavitt had always thrived in the spotlight, until now. Standing before a wall of flashing cameras, her voice trembled. Her eyes shimmered with tears. The usual fire in her demeanor had softened. Something had changed. The press braced for impact. Was she about to announce a resignation, a personal crisis, or something no one could have predicted? Her ascent to the national stage was far from ordinary. She didn't come from a dynastic political family or follow a neatly curated route into power. Karoline was raised in a modest New Hampshire town where her parents ran an ice cream stand and sold used trucks. Small-town roots, but even then she was different, driven, loud when it mattered. By college, that early spark had turned into a wildfire. While classmates prepped for midterms, Karoline was penning sharp op-eds in defense of Trump. She launched her campus's first broadcasting club, not just to speak, but to be heard. And it worked. Her voice started carrying. The right people noticed. That momentum didn't slow. A Fox News internship opened the door to a coveted White House post under Kayleigh McEnany. Soon after, she climbed even higher, landing a role as communications director for Representative Elise Stefanik, a rising Republican heavyweight. In a space where young voices are often sidelined, Karoline made sure hers rang out loud and clear. But today, at that podium, she wasn't the unshakable figure we were used to. Something was different. Stripped of the usual armor, she was about to share something personal, something no one expected, about her husband. Her path had never been easy. When she first stepped up as White House press secretary, still glowing from her post-election win, the press pool didn't exactly erupt in applause. The youngest person to ever hold the role? Expectations were low. Critics figured she'd play it safe, stick to the script. Some even predicted a quick crash and burn. But when Karoline took the mic that first day, she blew those assumptions apart. Her debut press conference ran nearly 50 minutes, almost unheard of for a newcomer. But it wasn't the duration that grabbed attention. It was the delivery. She didn't sidestep tough questions. She didn't soften her language. She confronted the press head-on, calling out slanted narratives and leaving no doubt that she wasn't just keeping the seat warm, she was rewriting the rules. Even veteran journalist Peter Alexander came at her strong. She didn't blink. Her answers were sharp, confident, controlled. It wasn't by chance. She had studied media and politics at St. Anselm College and knew how they intertwined. That insight carried her through her early career, first as assistant press secretary under Trump, and then as national press secretary for his 2024 campaign. Karoline wasn't just surviving in high-stakes political chaos, she was owning it. But her real genius? It wasn't just in handling the press, it was in recognizing the media landscape had changed. Legacy news outlets were losing ground. Meanwhile, podcasters and independent influencers were building massive audiences. Karoline didn't resist the shift, she embraced it. Rather than chase the approval of traditional media, she took the administration's message directly to the places where real people were actually listening. Under her lead, digital creators suddenly found themselves at press briefings. Conservative influencers were being given the same access as CNN or the New York Times. Critics called it reckless. Karoline called it reality. If millions have tuned out mainstream media, she said, why keep pretending they haven't? It worked. White House Communications Director Stephen Cheung even called her first briefing the most successful one ever. That declaration sent ripples through D.C. The old media playbook was officially obsolete. Still, Karoline stirred plenty of debate, and not just for her political tactics. Her personal life made headlines, too. She had married Nicholas Rio, a 59-year-old real estate tycoon, 32 years her senior. Online reaction was swift and brutal. Was it genuine? Was it opportunistic? Karoline didn't waste time responding. She kept her eyes on the bigger picture, until everything changed. July 13th, 2024. A Trump rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. The crowd was electric until gunfire rang out. A shot hit the former president. The scene descended into chaos. The Secret Service swarmed. Blood, screams, confusion. The country was stunned. But for Karoline, the moment hit differently. She wasn't at the rally. She wasn't even in D.C. She was at home, holding her newborn son, just 3 days old. What had started as a routine evening shifted into something surreal. On her TV screen, the world was unraveling, and she was sitting there, clutching a new life in her arms. Then came the decision, one that most new mothers wouldn't dream of. She turned to her husband and said, "I have to go back." And she did. Just 4 days postpartum, she returned to the White House. Cameras flashing, questions flying. The nation looked on in disbelief. Her body was still recovering. Her baby was barely out of the hospital. But her reasoning was clear. "The president took a bullet for this country," she said. "The least I could do was return to the fight." Some hailed it as courage. Others called it insanity. But for Karoline, it was simple. Duty. To her, Trump's survival wasn't just a campaign twist. It was a rallying cry. A reminder that resilience isn't optional. If he could take a bullet and keep pushing forward, then what excuse did she have not to? But balancing press briefings and motherhood wasn't exactly seamless. Some days she felt unstoppable. Other days, she wondered if her baby would even recognize her face. Leaving him each morning? It broke her. "It's heartbreaking," she admitted. Still, she never slowed down. And what made that possible? Nicholas Rio. He wasn't loud about it. He didn't seek praise. But behind closed doors, he was the glue. While Karoline managed political chaos, Rio cared for their son, making bottles, changing diapers, calming cries. Thanks to his flexible career, he could be there. In every moment Karoline had to miss. The assassination attempt had rattled the entire nation, but for her, it was a wake-up call, a stark reminder of why she had chosen this path. It reminded her of why she sacrificed the comforts that most people take for granted, why giving up was never an option. So when she addressed the press just days after surviving one of the most harrowing political moments in recent history, it wasn't just about holding her ground. It was a reaffirmation of her commitment to the cause. But beneath that calm, poised exterior, something much more personal was brewing. Yes, she was managing the pressures of politics and motherhood, but what she was about to reveal about her husband would completely alter the narrative. In politics, every relationship gets scrutinized like a criminal investigation. And her marriage to Nicholas Rio? That had sparked a conversation of its own. Their relationship wasn't your typical power couple dynamic. It didn't begin in a think tank or at a strategic campaign meeting. Instead, they met at one of those high-pressure political events, full of handshakes, fake smiles, and everyone pretending their entire day didn't run on caffeine and ambition. By then, Karoline was already on the rise, polished, focused, and thriving under the spotlight. He, on the other hand, was a real estate mogul, extremely wealthy and completely uninterested in playing political games. He didn't do press, he didn't chase attention, and social media didn't even register on his radar. And yet, against all odds, something clicked. On paper, they seemed like an odd match. She was young, ambitious, and very much a creature of the digital age. He was 32 years older, allergic to social media, and didn't even have a Facebook account. In an age where influence is often measured in followers and likes, he had none of it. No Twitter, no LinkedIn, not even a personal Instagram. But while others saw a mismatch, they saw something different. Balance. She was bold, outspoken, always at the heart of the action. He preferred to observe, to listen, to support quietly from the sidelines. The public couldn't stop talking. The age gap wasn't just a footnote. It became a headline. The internet was ablaze. Some called her a gold digger. Others openly doubted the authenticity of their relationship. Every photo she shared with Rio became an open invitation for judgment. "Is that your dad? Your husband looks old enough to be your grandfather." But she didn't blink. No lengthy rebuttals, no social media rants, just a quiet confidence. "He's my #1 fan, the best father and the best man I've ever known," she posted once. The trolls couldn't shake her. They never could. While the world obsessed over their age gap, Karoline and Rio focused on what truly mattered, a life built with intention, away from the noise. No grand public displays of affection, no glossy magazine covers, just two people who knew what they had and cherished it. Even their engagement was refreshingly low-key. On Christmas Day in 2023 at home, he asked her to marry him. She said yes. That was the moment. The next day, she posted a single photo, Rio on one knee, the diamonds sparkling in the soft winter light. "The best Christmas of my life. I get to marry the man of my dreams." No theatrics, just pure, unfiltered joy. Their wedding was no different. While other political couples threw lavish ceremonies that dominated the headlines, theirs was a quiet affair. No press, no exclusive photos, no anonymous leaks. She didn't make a big announcement. She simply updated her bio to say one word: wife. Marriage didn't slow them down. In fact, it seemed to fuel them. She stepped into one of Washington's most demanding jobs. He kept running his real estate empire as if nothing had changed. There were no memoirs, no interviews, no sudden bids for the spotlight as the political spouse. He stayed right where he preferred, in the background. But just because he remained out of the public eye didn't mean he wasn't vital. When Karoline made headlines by returning to work just 4 days after giving birth, the world was stunned. How could she possibly do that? They wondered. The answer was simple: Nicholas Rio. While she handled press briefings, he handled everything at home. She always referred to him as her rock, the man who gave tirelessly, never asked for recognition, and expected no applause. But what no one saw was what he sacrificed. He wasn't just the supportive figure quietly cheering her on in the background. There was so much more to his story. Nicholas Rio was never supposed to be in the spotlight. As Karoline made history as the youngest White House press secretary, he stayed out of it, just as he always had, content to remain in his element, the background. Everyone assumed he was simply another lucky rich guy who got his break. But Rio's past? Far from privileged. At 18, he was homeless. No family to turn to, no savings to fall back on, just a relentless determination to survive. While most his age were mapping out their college plans, he was focused on where he would sleep that night. But he didn't give up. He hustled. He started buying neglected properties in Hampton Beach, New Hampshire, places others wouldn't touch. He saw potential where others saw trash. By 2005, he owned 15 buildings, 70 rental units, and had earned a reputation for turning things around. His business, Rio Enterprises LLC, soon expanded across New England. His strategy was simple: find what others overlook, fix it up, never overextend. By the time his name was known, the wealth was already his. But real estate wasn't just about making money, it became his platform for something bigger. His properties became gathering places for conservative networks, quiet, strategic hubs where ideas replaced grandstanding. While others made noise, Rio made progress. And through it all, he kept his distance from the spotlight. He never sought accolades. Because it's truly powerful, they don't make noise. They pull strings in the shadows. While other moguls gave TED Talks and posted photos with their private jets, Nicholas Rio operated in the silence of the background, shifting the pieces on the chessboard. No fanfare, just results. And oddly enough, that made him even more intriguing. One of his properties, for instance, became more than just a lucrative investment. It transformed into a hub, a meeting space for conservative women, hosting influential Women for Trump events. But Rio wasn't your typical wealthy donor, sitting behind a desk in a plush office, writing checks from the comfort of his chair. He was methodical and strategic, ensuring that his success was meaningful. Unlike the billionaire class that flaunted their connections to politicians, Rio took a completely different path. No media appearances, no glossy magazine features, no polished Instagram posts aimed at impressing anyone. Online, it was as if he barely existed, and that absence was by design. For a long time, he stayed in the background, far from the media's gaze. But that changed the moment he married Karoline Leavitt. The spotlight found him, though it was the last thing he wanted. Almost overnight, social media was flooded with commentary. Their age gap became a point of endless speculation. Some people saw it as calculated. Others couldn't believe it was real. Every photo Karoline posted with him became a battleground for online critics. But what the public failed to see was the foundation that underpinned their relationship: shared values, quiet loyalty, and an unwavering respect. Their home was never about appearances. It was about peace. When their son, Nicholas Robert, was born, Rio made a choice. He stepped away from his thriving empire, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. For a man who had built everything from the ground up, putting family first wasn't a sacrifice. It was instinct. Despite his best efforts to avoid the spotlight, the truth about Rio eventually emerged. And when Karoline finally revealed what he had been doing behind closed doors, even the most cynical political insiders were left in awe. For weeks, people had been asking the same question: how was she doing all of this? How was she managing the most demanding job of her life, raising a newborn, and staying composed under constant scrutiny? She'd returned to work just 4 days after giving birth. Some admired her determination, while others questioned whether it was sustainable. Then, during what seemed like another routine press briefing, something unexpected happened. Karoline, usually so composed, paused for a moment. Her voice softened slightly. "I've been asked over and over how I'm balancing this job, motherhood, and everything in between," she said. "The truth is, I couldn't have done any of this without my husband." That single sentence shifted the entire narrative. Suddenly, Rio was no longer just the mysterious figure lurking in the background. He became the foundation, the one who held everything together when no one was watching. The speculation about their relationship had gone on for so long, but no one had known the full story. Nicholas Rio wasn't just a real estate mogul or a quiet presence in the background. He was the person who made sure their world didn't fall apart under pressure. Before their son arrived, he had already made a decision. No press releases, no headlines, just a quiet shift in his life so Karoline could step into hers without hesitation. "When I told Nicholas I wanted to go back to work right away," Karoline shared, "he didn't even hesitate. He simply said, 'We'll figure it out,' and he meant it." She spoke candidly about the guilt she felt, the pain of leaving her son behind every morning. The weight of that decision was heavy, but each time it became overwhelming, Rio was there. Not with empty motivational speeches, but with his presence. Knowing that her son was with a father who had rearranged his entire life to be present, that was the key to making her career work. And just like that, the narrative changed. Nicholas Rio was no longer just the quiet older husband. He was the unsung hero, the hidden force behind her balance. Yes, he had built an empire, but his most valuable contribution wasn't in his wealth. It was in the quiet, consistent support he offered every day, expecting nothing in return. Then came the press conference that truly flipped the script. Karoline, known for her iron composure, became visibly emotional. She didn't speak about policy or politics. She spoke about partnership, about sacrifice. Karoline, known for her iron composure, became visibly emotional. She didn't speak about policy or politics. She spoke about partnership, about sacrifice. The media quickly jumped on it. Some criticized her for setting unrealistic standards for working mothers. Others praised her for breaking new ground and redefining what was possible. But regardless of the reaction, one thing was undeniable. Leavitt and Rio had changed the conversation. They had demonstrated that, in a world obsessed with ambition and status, true success comes down to one thing: who is standing beside you when the cameras aren't rolling. And perhaps, just maybe, their story made others stop and rethink what real partnership truly looks like.